And here we are in week 5 of our Life in Love series. And when I built this series, I was like, okay, 6 weeks talking about a few different things. And now I'm like, hey, how are we here in week 5? And we're just now talking about like starting to talk to somebody you like or starting to maybe go on a date like 5 weeks in. That's kind of crazy. And yet here we are. And you heard that right. We actually have one more week as well. And so tonight, I hope you walk away with some encouragement and some meaningful conversation, especially around this topic of like what happens. Uh-oh. Thank you. Almost bad. I have my boundary. What happens when you start to talk to somebody who you notice, who you like, and what does it even mean to go on a date in today's world and culture that feels like it's changing all the time? And I'm not going to try and like tell you what to do or even like break down like this is what dating looks like today. I can't keep up, but what I can do is give you some encouragement. So I have 3 encouragements for you, 3 principles that I hope help you whenever you start to talk to somebody, or as you are talking to somebody, or one day when it happens, or maybe when you do the unthinkable and you ask somebody on a date. So that's where we're going to head tonight. And then in small groups, I think this will be your most meaningful time as you talk through this and get to hear from your leaders about some of their best and worst experiences in this whole arena of going on a date. So I think we should actually talk about this stuff more, not necessarily less, because there's a lot of life to be found in it. And number 2, the Bible has a ton to say about who you are. And we've been talking about that. Like the first part of this series has really been an identity series, and we've looked at who we are and who we're becoming and how that has a big deal into how we date. But the Bible does not have a ton to say about like going on a date, like thou shalt, ask a girl on a date, or whatever it might be. But the Bible has a lot to say about evaluation as well, like thinking like, oh, how do I make sense of all this? We'll talk a bit more about that next week. But tonight, I just want to talk about that first stage. You start to like somebody, you start to notice them, they start to notice you, and what do you do? All right, 3 encouragements for you. Number 1, first encouragement is to be clear and kind. And it kind of like makes sense, right? But I want to bring you back to the beginning of this series. And I asked you, is it the boy's responsibility to ask a girl on a date? And I thought for sure I would see what? Yes. But we asked like 45 of you, and here were your responses. And this is kind of fascinating. So a few people, they're like, dates are an outdated idea, but quite a few people are like, yes, and then almost half the people are like, it depends. And I was like, depends on what? And so, what's that? Is it the boy's job to ask a girl on a date? Or it's kind of on purpose to create like less pressure in a response. But anyway, that's off the... All that to say, I did not get the responses I was wondering about, and I certainly think this is worthwhile talking in small groups. Like, is it the boy's responsibility? Personally, I think there is a lot to be said for a guy working up the courage in a clear and kind way and asking a girl on a date, like on an actual date. I am an advocate for that, and I'm going to speak to the guys in a room in just a bit. But I also know, apparently, in this world, it depends, and I'm excited to figure out more about what that means. And so, gentlemen, I want to speak to you for just a moment. Girls, I'm not saying don't listen. In fact, I think this can be quite helpful, but I want to lift up the guys in the room that are all like talking to each other right now. This is how it goes. Appreciate you. Hey. So here's the number 1 thing I noticed in myself when I was a young guy, and basically every single young guy, when you start to like a girl, the thing that happens is you play it cool. I'm not saying this always happens, but what I notice is it's like calm, cool. You kind of like buy your time. You begin to maybe text or snap a little bit, and you're starting to kind of get like the lay of the land, figure out your plan, and really not do anything. And my encouragement to you is, guess what? That puts you in the same category as every other guy. And if you like, or friends, right? Yes, like it puts you in the friend category, and also like you don't stand out in either a good way or even a bad way. This passivity puts you into this place where there's a lack of clarity and in some ways even a lack of kindness. And so, fellas, and in general, like people are attracted to kindness. They're attracted to confidence. And there's this, I just think it's great. It's one of, the King James Bible has some of the best translations or some of the most interesting translations. And Proverbs 19:22 in the old school King James Version says this. And it doesn't mean just a man. You can really say a person. But the desire of a person is their kindness, or the desire of a man is his kindness. That there's something that stands out in you when you lead with a kindness and with a clarity. If you like a girl, like actually like her, and you're in a spot where you're ready to ask her out, I'm not saying like corner her. I'm not saying be weird. I'm not saying like bribe the sound guy and start singing to her, on the field. I'm just saying that what's the worst that happens if you lean in and make it clear how you feel and say, hey, I'd like to take you on a date? What's the worst that happens? She says no, and guess what? You move forward. If you like ask her in front of, you know what I mean? Like the context matters, but really, that's the basic worst that happens. All right, let me explain. The carrot girl, do you remember her last week? At the very end, I told you about how I noticed this girl chomping on a carrot across the room, and I was like, who are you? And I ended up asking her on a date. And yes, spoiler alert, her name is Kylie. She is my wife. She's my favorite person on the planet. I had no idea. At the time, I just noticed her. And there's a whole story there, which I'm sure I'll unpack one day, of what happened to lead me to asking her on a date. But when I asked her on a date, I did not text her. I wasn't like, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? Or like my friends and I were going to do this. You want to come? I waited until we were I think it was at church or it was at some type of event. And I pulled her aside for a moment and I was just like, hey, the truth is I like you and I'd love to take you on a date. Is that something you'd be interested in? And she smiled and was like, yeah. And I had a plan. And I was like, great, I'll pick you up Saturday morning at 9:30. And then I kind of walked off. Which, in the morning, I know. But right, there's a sense of she appreciated, I think, that I just shot my shot, leaned in, and then I was like, cool, I'll see you Saturday morning. I didn't ask her if she was available Saturday. I was just like, I'll pick you up Saturday at 9:30, and then I left. And if she wasn't available, I figured she'd make it clear to me. She didn't say anything. So I showed up at 9:30 in the morning on purpose because I wanted a low-pressure date that had a start point and an end point. And what I am saying is be clear. Lead with kindness. And if she would have said no, I'd have been like, I feel like I've been waiting a long time to ask you on a date, but I totally understand, and I would have moved on. It would not have crushed me because of everything we've already talked about in this series. And so my encouragement to you, especially gentlemen, in a sense, don't be like every other guy and play it cool, which really means passive. Be intentional. Shoot your shot. Don't be weird about it. Don't corner her. Don't put her on the spot. Have a plan. Ask her on a date. Who knows when you're ready. All right, girls, I'm a dude, so my encouragement to you is pretty simple, and I feel like that just makes sense like that sometimes. But my encouragement to you is this. Do not let guys get away with passive, childish, boyish ways of talking to you. Does that make sense? Kindly ignore them, making it clear that that's not something that you're interested in. Notice when a guy leans in and just comes up to you and maybe talks, or maybe even friends for a while, but he goes for it, and maybe you're not interested at all. I've never been a believer in pity dates. And so my other encouragement would be hey, if you don't like someone, I'll tell my daughters this for sure. Like, you do not have to say yes, especially, say yes. You can say no, thanks for asking, or thanks, but no thanks, I'm not interested. And then you don't need to go to like all your friends and be like, oh my gosh, can you believe that he asked me on a date? Like, it takes a lot of courage to do it, so you don't need to put them on blast, but you don't have to say yes to every single guy. But if you see maybe a guy that leads with clarity, kindness, you're kind of intrigued, then, well, who knows? All right, that's number one. Number two, this is my encouragement too. Be creative, have fun. Did you know dates are supposed to be fun? Like going on an actual old school date where there's like intentional getting to know each other in like a mutually attractive setting. Like that's supposed to be fun. Like so fun, Levi. Appreciate you, brother. Okay, so, and you're going on a date. Put some intentionality into it, put some thought into it, put some chivalry back into this world. When I took Kylie on the first date, I parked my car out front of her house, and I got out, and I walked to the front door, and I knocked on her door, and her dad answered, and I was like, oh. And I was like, do I say Derek, or do I say Mr. Gregory? Because I had known him for years. I had been meeting with him. He basically knew my life, so I was like, I'll just call him Derek. And I was like, hey, Derek. And he's like, hey, Collin. And then Kylie shows up, and I was like, whoa, hey. And I'm like, Derek will be back around 11:30. And Kylie and I walked to the car, and I opened her side of the car door. She got in, then I got into the other side, and I had 3 envelopes on our first date. And I was like, Kylie, I actually have 3 different dates planned, but we can only go on one. So you're gonna need to choose one of these envelopes, and that'll take us on the date. And each envelope had a word on it. It was splashy, homey, and vibey. Why? I have no idea. It just felt, it felt right. She looked at him, kind of had the same reaction, and she's like, I'll choose splashy. And I'm like, perfect. I was hoping you'd choose that one. And I was like, we got to hurry. And she opened it, and it was a reservation for a brunch for 2 people at Tangerine, if you've ever been there, in Boulder. Just a great, fun brunch spot. And we had a great date. I didn't pull out all the stops or spend all of this money. I just was heartfelt. I was genuine. I added a little bit of flair and creativity, and especially if you're going on a first date and you really like someone, have fun and bring in a little creativity. The last thing you want to do is pick somebody up and then be like, all right, what do you want to do? Like that, but you laugh because it's happened, or you're like, where do you want to go? To dinner. Or the worst, like going to a movie. If you notice, especially in a first date, where do you get a chance to get to know somebody when you're sitting next to them, not talking in a dark room for 2.5 hours? There's just this tension that starts to build up. Go on a date where you can talk with them and maybe do something fun together. And I also had a full-time job at the time. And so I paid for her on brunch. And actually, I don't think this is outdated. Guys, a lot of you in high school, you do not have a full-time job. And so you too will pay for her on her date. That is the right thing to do. I don't know, maybe it's an old-fashioned thing, but you like someone so much, and then you're like, so we can split this 50-50, or it just doesn't make sense. Have a little chivalry and show that you like someone by saying hey, I'm gonna pay for you. All right, that's the second one. First one, clear and kind. There's a confidence in that. Second one, creative and fun. And then lastly, this is the big one. Less is more. If I could share one thing with young people as they start to maybe talk and go on a date, it was kind of a breakthrough for me. It changed how I went about taking Kylie on dates and going on dates with her in the beginning. Less is more. If you really like someone, you actually really like them, stop texting them all the time. Stop talking to them digitally all the time. You're gonna go on a date this weekend, or you're going to, whatever you say, on Saturday, and you don't need to text them for 5 hours leading up to it over the week or on that day, because then you're on the date, and guess what? It feels just normal. Or worse, you start to repeat your texting conversations in person, and you lose this key ingredient to any date, which is anticipation. Going on a date is about anticipation. You don't want to lose that. You want to use it. It's a good thing. A date should be fun because there's this level of anticipation, like, I don't know, who knows? This level of potential. My uncle, when I went on like one of my first dates in high school, he was like, "Oh, you better be careful. The next date you go on could be, the last person you go on a date with." And I was like, what does that mean? And I took it the negative way, like I ruined it from the very beginning. I like never get another shot. And he's like, no, like who you never know. That could be the person you walk down an aisle with one day, and the last thing you want to do is put pressure on that. But that at the heart of it, going on a date, there's a little bit of risk, anticipation, and potential. That's a good thing. So you go to dinner, and then you go to Sweet Cow, and then you talk out front of your car for like 4 hours until 2 in the morning. Like, don't do that. I remember I've been there, and it feels like the date's going well, and it feels good, and then all of a sudden, it's like you lose that bit of potential and anticipation. And when I took Kylie on that first date, honestly, the first several dates, I had these starts and end times, partly just to like honor her and her family. But right when the date was going the best, it was like hour and a half-ish, 2 hours in, I dropped her off. And I was like, I had a great time. I hope you did too. And I'm pretty sure I walked her to the door, probably gave her a hug, and then drove off. And anybody seen Hitch? It's classic. It was my manual. I'm just not fully, but there's some good stuff in it. And I waited 2 days to say anything to Kylie, not because I was trying to play a game, not because I wanted her to know, like, my life did not revolve around going on a date with her. I didn't text her in that time. I let the anticipation build, and we had a great time on that date, and she had a great time. And I knew when I called her out of the blue, like a couple days later on that Monday, and I was like, hey, it's Collin, do you have a couple minutes to talk? And she's like, sure. And I was like, hey, I had a great time on our date, and I'd love to take you out again. And she's like, okay. And I was like, Friday night, I'll be there around 7. And she's like, great. And then I hung up. It was like less than a minute. And she's like, what? Who is this guy? And then I waited, and I picked her up Friday night, and we had a great date, and I dropped her off. And then I waited a couple days because less is actually more. It's kind of built into the design that when you are not around somebody all the time, especially when you like them, what are you doing? What are you doing when you're not around somebody you like? Or sometimes, or you're teaching. Yeah, thanks, Zach. You find yourself thinking about that, and there's like a healthy goodness in building that up. So number 1, clear and kind. Number 2, be creative. Have fun. Doesn't mean you need to go out, spend tons of money. Have fun, be creative. Number 3, less is more. And if you notice, I didn't say anything about the like physical stuff. And the same thing applies here. It was freeing when I kind of realized this. Less is more. Like, do we hold hands? Do we kiss? Like, when are you supposed to kiss? Like, how do you figure all this out? And I asked you all, and you also had a couple survey responses here. Look at this first one. And then we'll close in just a minute. When is it okay to kiss someone you like? And half the world is in agreement that it's when you become a girlfriend or boyfriend, which people don't even know when that happens today, so that means nothing. But only after the first date. Who put this answer? Is after the first date like the second date, or is it at the end of the first date? Or not a single answer for only if you get engaged, which... well, rest in peace, my story, but, and then one person on your wedding day, meaning there's quite a variety, right? Or this next question, this one kind of feels like a bit more of the risky one. Do you think teenagers today expect to hook up on a date? And half-ish people said no. I'm not saying you all. The question says, do you think teenagers in general today? So you don't have to, like, oh, which one, But, and then the orange part, like, it's complicated because it is complicated, yes. My encouragement to you, less is more. especially in the physical sense when you start to talk to somebody when you go on a date. This goes to everybody, but especially the gentlemen. I want you to hear this. Like, I want you to hear this truly. Honor her. Make it so abundantly clear that you are not on a date with her to try and engage with her physically. Be upstanding. Be set apart. Be kind. My personal principle was that any girl, after that year that I took off dating, I was like, any girl I go on a date with, I am not going to make any moves whatsoever physically at all. I'm probably hugged Kylie at the beginning of the date and the end of the date. But to me, that was it. Because I wanted her to know so clearly and honestly that I was there to get to know who she was, not anything else. And I didn't want her to feel any pressure. I didn't want anything to enter into that. I wanted her to feel honored. And so it was a way that I was able to step into being a man. And so, gentlemen, like, don't be a child, a boy. Have fun, be creative, honor, be upstanding. Girls, guys, like, figure out your values and your value in Jesus with your people, with your friends, your family, your community, and hold on to that. Dating's supposed to be fun, supposed to be simple. It's not supposed to have all this pressure and all this confusion. And it's possible. Worship team, you can come on up. I'd like to end with this. One of my favorite verses that I kind of like tucked away in my heart is in Proverbs 25. Proverbs 25:16 says this. It says, if you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it, and you'll vomit. I'll say that one more time. I know it's not on the screen. I decided to end here. Oh no, what happened? Oh, with the honey? I know. That's Proverbs 25:16. If you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it, and you'll vomit. And I thought about that, especially as I started to date Kylie. It felt like maybe I found honey. Like, it was good, it was sweet. We enjoyed going on dates. And there was this sense of like, wait, no one wants to vomit, especially on a first date or a second date. Less is more. Less is more. All right, my hope tonight is that in small groups, you're able to have like real conversations. You're able to ask your leaders, ask each other about some of your experiences, about some of these principles. But will you get yourself into the quiet place of prayer? Lights can come off. And we're going to enter into just a time of worship to close out our talk tonight as we send you off into small groups. And I know the talk was a little bit lighter. That's good sometimes. But we can bring in heavy things. We bring in all the things. And you are welcome here. And so again, if you haven't, just quiet your heart. Maybe close your eyes, bow your head. Let's pray and then let's worship.